Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. Today marks the day that the Tower of Nightmares patch went live in Guild Wars 2. It's available to play right now, as is all of the Halloween stuff. Halloween is still going on, and in fact, on the 30th, which is tomorrow, the big finale of Halloween happens, where Mad King Thorn will come to visit Lion's Arch. So there's actually quite a lot of stuff going on in Guild Wars 2 right now, and I think... Question mark, for the first time ever, up in the top right hand corner of our screens, you actually see two different living story windows at the same time. Like, usually there's just like one golden one that says, hey, this event is currently going on in game, but actually there's two overlapping right now. They're actually quite distant and separate from one another. Usually when we see, you know, two going on at once, they're actually tied together. So like the Cutthroat Politics, first we got to see the Bazaar, and then the Cutthroat Politics sort of just added on top of that. This is so different, they're actually marking it with two different events up there, which is kind of cool. Anyway, this is the big change to Kessex Hills, and indeed, it's actually, when I logged in, if you press M, you'll see on the map that Kessex Hills itself, the coloration of at least the area on the map, has changed in a big way, and it's such a superficial, basic thing for them to have changed, but immediately when I saw that, I was like, yes, this is brilliant. Oh, this feels like really good new content. So you'll actually be able to see a big difference there. There's not actually just a change in Kessex Hills only. Now that the Tower of Nightmares has been revealed, Lady Casimir casts a spell to make it visible to all. Now that we can see it, there are actually spores being spread all around that general region of Tyria. So it's not just Viathan Lake in Kessex Hills. It's not even just the area around Viathan Lake. It's actually every single adjoining explorable area to Kessex Hills. So Gendaran Fields has changed, the Brisbane Wildlands has changed, Caledon Forest has, and so has Queensdale. All these areas are actually being impacted. And the idea is, one big idea behind the patch, there are actually several things to do, but one big thing is, as you are completing the events and the associated content to this patch, you're going to be getting items that you're meant to trade in with Marjorie Delacroix, and by doing this, you will eventually unlock your new heal skill, which allows you to remove toxin. See, you're going to load into the zone, and you're going to want to climb the tower straight away, but if you go too close to the tower, toxin is going to start ticking up on your character and stacking higher and higher and higher, which, yes, you can out-heal for a while, and I'm sure there must be some pretty funny builds out there, or where people have, like, mass healing. I'm thinking, you know, some kind of banner heal sig warrior on a cleric set, and maybe see that you can get reasonably far, or stay in the toxin for a reasonable period of time, but after a while, it's just not going to be feasible. I am actually not sure. I'm making this video basically just after the patch went out to express the basics to you guys. I'm not sure how deep the rabbit hole goes right now. I know that once you've got the heal skill and you complete the start of the meta, something should happen, but right now I have not had access to the tower itself. Aside from this little side quest, what you're going to first find, when you very first go into Kessex Hills, you're immediately going to get loaded into a story instance for this plot, okay? So you're going to be in Kessex Hills in a very specific area. It's a lot like playing personal story stuff, but has some interesting mechanics going on with it, but essentially just introduces you to the area, the fact that Marjorie Delacroix is there, that Lady Casimir is there, and, you know, ropes in all of these newbies that didn't really understand what the patch was going to be until it went live. It's actually quite a fun little instance. That's mostly what you're going to be looking at the footage in the background of for this video, and you'll notice that one big mechanic for this patch is some enemies don't immediately die. Now, we've seen this before in various ways. If you think about Scarlet's mechanized creatures, a lot of them have to be stomped. Press F to stomp these creatures. But actually, for the first time, I believe, when you stomp now, it will use your real finisher. So all these items that have been going in the Black Lion store recently, different finishers, all of these rewards you get from playing TPVP, like the different animal finishers, they now have relevance in the PvE world. I gotta admit, I feel pretty cool walking around as a part of this patch, not just the story instance, but out in the real world too, and I am stomping enemies with my big rank 50 bear. I love it. I think it's really cool. And what that actually does as well is opens them up to some other interesting ideas where enemies will revive one another in a similar way to that you see in the PvP environments of this game. And that's not been much of a mechanic in Guild Wars 2 at all. It makes me think, again, back to the first game where, yes, sometimes enemies could revive one another, and you always knew specifically what those enemies were, and they were always 10 times harder to fight because they had this capability. capability. Like the Stone Summit in Slave as Exile, Duncan's forces. They could all resurrect one another, and that made them way more dangerous. Some of the gargoyles as well from the first game could resurrect one another. And now it feels really cool to be playing this instance of this new content in Guild Wars 2, where you down one guy, and then you'll see like a Krait saunters over to him, kneels down, well, kneels to the best of their ability, at their body and starts, you know, chanting to bring them back to life. This is cool, and they ball up and then you can nuke them all down. Speaking of new mechanics as well associated with this patch, one truly new mechanic is there's a new class of enemy in the game now, elite mobs. Okay, so by that I mean we've got regular mobs and then veterans, and we have champions. They've actually added another type now, elite, which exists between vet and champ. And yeah, that makes sense to me, because champions, depending on the champion, of course, can be insanely difficult to kill. Very, very, very difficult. Need large groups of people in some situations to kill them. Veterans are just kind of annoying things to kill for a solo player. The elite mobs exist in the middle here, so they are for small groups of players to kill. Not quite as difficult as champions, but they're for small groups of players. I do have a feeling that this new type of enemies come about as well, because ArenaNet want to have difficult enemies to fight in their content that don't drop champion boxes. You know, right now, I guess they felt like they were before this patch, they felt like they were kind of strong-armed into, oh, we want to have this difficult enemy, but we don't want to make it a champion, because if we make it a champion, people are going to be getting loot for something we don't really want them to be doing, or people might start farming stuff ArenaNet didn't want them to be. But at the same time, they can't just call everything a veteran that's difficult that they don't want to have a champion box. So we are seeing these new enemies. I assume they'll be filtered more and more through as the game goes forward and we get more patches, but that's like one big thing that I'm seeing so far here. As well as this idea of collecting the spores to unlock your heal skill, there is something of a side quest as well. And in this, you learn more lore about the Krait. The idea is there are obelisk shards. If you complete the meta achievement for this patch, you're going to get access to an obelisk, basically, in your home instance, which will serve as an easy skill point for you, but also a place of power, perhaps to charge your quartz, for example, after you've been getting it in your home instance. It's another little thing for your home instance. But in addition to this, there are obelisk shards you can find and collect all around Tyria that you can take back to a specific NPC to learn more about the Kraits. It's a really nice idea for a side quest, and something I particularly enjoy, considering I'm rather heavily invested into the lore of these patches, of this world, and often, especially when you look at the Krait and the information that's out there online about them, players in-game just don't understand it, because there's really very little of that made transparent by the game itself. However, this side quest really does emphasize that. This is a side quest specifically where you're going about to learn more about them. Indeed, there are a lot of NPCs clustered around a specific area to the northwest of the lake that have that juicy lore. One in particular person tells you everything, and maybe even a little bit more than what we hear in the blogs, in a much more concise way, but they do explain how the Krait are from the deep seas. This character tells us about how the Krait used to have these great pillared cities in the deep oceans that maybe stretched from the ocean floors and potentially even came out way above it, right, over the surface. These great Krait cities, and how they were pushed into the shallow areas recently. They talked about, this NPC talks about the Krait legends of the prophets and the obelisk's role in the Krait religion, and that's really exciting to me. It's very cool, because I was a little worried with this patch. We heard that it was going to be to do with the Krait. We saw this tower, something that looked like a portal at the top of it, and my speculation was that it definitely had something to do with these prophets and this idea that they were coming back. But then we had a little bit more information just before it came out, where we kind of learn, oh, the story is the Nightmare Court and the Krait have teamed up, which sounds rather shallow at first, but the idea that the prophets could still be a part of this story is still very much on the table, and this character, particularly talking about it in-game, really excites me. And hopefully, even though we are just dealing with another alliance as a part of the living story, this could be something more. And while I'm on that topic, I may as well just explain very clearly to you guys what is the plot here. The Nightmare Court, perhaps, or a specific faction of the Nightmare Courts, perhaps under the direction of Scarlet Briar, have teamed up with the Krait to create what is called the Toxic Alliance. The very first living story stuff we saw in Guild Wars 2 was to do with a Molten Alliance. A recent alliance that we've spent a lot of time dealing with have been the Aether Blades, who are basically an alliance between the Sky Pirates that came out of nowhere and the Inquest. Like, that's how they describe it in game at the moment. And now we have another alliance, the Toxic Alliance. And as I say, this feels kind of shallow, and I think some people might be rolling their eyes and thinking, for God's sake, another alliance? Come on, just give us something good. At the same time, we could be perhaps seeing, you know, now that we're kind of in a new chapter here. This is the Toxic Alliance chapter, right? And this is now, maybe even ArenaNet's third, if you would consider it as such, real attempt at maybe doing, like, a solid story arc as a part of the living story. And we've just started this new one. This could potentially be an exciting one. This could be a good, solid story arc we've now got coming up, which, yes, involves the Toxic Alliance and more stuff on the Nightmare Court and Sylvari that maybe some people are getting tired of. But it also deals with the Krait. And there are also these hints that maybe this is going to be to do with those prophets, and over a long period of time, players are going to learn about the prophets, the Krait religion, and we may finally see that come to fruition. We may see something big that impacts the world, a real summoning of these prophets back to Tyria. That could be very exciting. There are cool directions, even though the Toxic Alliance, for me personally, didn't really excite me that much. There are still good directions that this arc could go in, if that really is how ArenaNet are dealing with it, and I wholeheartedly do believe that's how they should have been dealing with the living story. Give us chapters, you know, the next 2-3 months is all on this story, and really make it cohesive. That's what I would like to see. Another big factor of this patch, of course, is the orders. The order, you made this decision back in Personal Story to join an order, and then once you've defeated Zaitan, or hell, even once the pact has been formed, it means nothing. Yay, the orders have been doing nothing. They've been complacent, they've been lazy, they've been idle. Not this patch. This patch, finally the orders are back. The decision you made in your Personal Story has no bearing, and this is a shame to me. Though I can understand why they decided this. You know, Living Story is supposed to be different to Personal Story, and if they did make it have a bearing, there would be, that you just know that there'd be all these negative Nancys crying on the forum saying, oh, if I had known, how was I supposed to know a year ago when I chose to be a member of the Vigil that it would mean I couldn't play Order of Whispers for this patch? You know, people would bitch. So I can understand why they haven't done that, even though they don't have that level of involvement for the patch. It is nice to see them out there, and they do all have specific new events and content revolving around them. So that's cool to see. And yes, because this tower hasn't just added new, like, events and stuff into the area, it's actually interacting in cool ways, as far as I can see, with his existing stuff there in Kessex, which is nice. The Krait Witch event that mysteriously disappeared last patch is back now. The Krait Witch is there again, so you can go back down. I haven't tried it myself yet, but it looks like it's, like, directly under the tower, or very close to the tower. We can actually once again fight that Krait Witch, and there's an achievement for this patch to kill all 3 Krait Witches in the game, which are all in the general area, right? So there's another one out in Caledon Forest, for example. The mini instance, the solo instance you play as well when you first join Kessex, is has like a section in it where you're rebuilding that bridge. Do you remember there's a single event as a part of the meta event for Fort Salma where there's that totally useless bridge that you have to build, and it just seems, why doesn't people walk around it? Well, again, like, they've returned to that idea in this little Personal Story thing, and I quite enjoy it. That's about all I can impart on the story-specific stuff right now, guys. I'm actually going to go away and complete the meta in its entirety and post another video with extended thoughts after I've completed the content, and we'll see how deep, as I say, the rabbit hole really goes. Aside from this stuff in PvE, though, I would like to point out as well, they made a couple of changes that were vaguely interesting. There were a lot of profession changes, but it was mostly just tooltips. You know, the last patch they did the big revamp to a lot of the text on traits and over skills and things. There's been a couple of fixes to inconsistencies within that system, but also for PvP, a pretty big change. They have removed this idea of personal score, and I can understand why, because this was sort of a little bit of a confusing idea. In PvP, you would have score that your team was accruing, and the first to 500 won, okay? But at the same time, individual players, based on what they were doing in the match, would get personal score too, and this score was the glory that would slowly build up and allow you to rank up and so forth. Well, that's been completely removed. Instead, you just get a flat, fixed amount of points for a win or a loss, and it's less if the game was really short to stop people exploiting the system. And that's it. There's no more personal score. I kind of like the idea in some ways, but in other ways, you know, one of the only fun things there is to do in hot joins, honestly, in hot joins, one of the only fun things to do is see how much score you can get, like trying to amass an insane amount of score, and nobody cares about the real overall game in hot joins. Honestly, if you play PvP any normal amount, right, the real game that people aren't playing isn't does red win or does blue win. Instead, people are playing the scoreboard, and they're trying to see who got the highest out of the map. map, right? Because that's all it is. It's a glory farm. And now that's just completely eliminated. That could be a big mistake for hot joins. There is even less reason now, even less competition, less fun in the hot join system. I really do shudder to think how that's going to go. But, you know, at the same time, I think for a lot of players that could just be a minor difference. And I am also happy that no longer can people, like, farm exploit it. Because there were certain servers people were setting up where they just rush each other on the beach. And you had these complete noobs just doing it just to get lots and lots and lots of rank points that really had no bearing on their skill at all. And it was just annoying to see people power leveling themselves for mindless play instead of, you know, being rewarded for the real good play. So that's now eliminated, and that's fine. I'm curious to see whether overall ranking up is now slower or faster. I'm sure that the devs will have been careful about where exactly they put the new glory points for a win or a loss so that it doesn't change that much, but it remains to be seen, and that's something I'll probably touch on as well when I do my follow-up. Lastly, I will mention one final thing. The Black Lion store, there are 3 new armor sets, full-on armor sets that you can wear into battle available, and there are a bunch of new Black Lion tickets, skins available too, which I actually previewed in the footage of this video for you guys as well. That's about it so far on what I can tell you for this patch. Thank you very much for watching. It is live now, so you can go and have fun. I have been impressed by it. I really have, and there's a lot of cool new icons and stuff on the map. Trust me, as soon as you get in game, you open the world map and you see Kessex Hills has changed, you'll be like, raring to go. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Let me know what you think. Have you been playing it that much so far, or is it just not getting you enthused anymore? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time. Have a good one, everyone.